It's Allie with Chair Success Services. What would change if you had more time to focus on growing your groups and creating powerful experiences for your members? Chair Success Services helps Vistage chairs do exactly that. Stay tuned, and I'll be back with more information.
Welcome to the ChairLife podcast with Tom Cuthbert. As a CEO coach and master chair, Tom brings you the insights, strategies, and tools to help you build your chair life, where mission and purpose intersect with a balanced work life. This is the path to leading with impact while living with intention. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Tom Cuthbert.
Welcome back to the ChairLife podcast, and it is January 2026, and I am getting ready to head to San Diego for ChairWorld. I hope that you are as well. This episode I wanted to dedicate to you as leaders and the great work that we get to do as Vistage chairs and CEO coaches. I'm really inspired by a quote from Jack Welch that says, "Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others." Now, I know that we have not all fully reached the success that we're capable of, but the fact that we're going to lean in and learn from each other and learn from our community at ChairWorld is step one for us to be better leaders. The work that we do day in and day out is helping grow other leaders, and what an honor it is to be able to do that work. ChairWorld is such a great place to meet other chairs, hear their stories, learn from them, share ideas, get to meet Vistage support and executive team, and just really bond with some great friends. I love it, and I can't wait to get there this year. When you hear this, I'll already be in San Diego, getting ready to meet you and getting ready to help add whatever value I can in the 2 sessions that I'll be presenting at ChairWorld this year. And so I thought today I would take a minute and step in at a high level of what those 2 sessions are and give you some insights into what to expect and how to lean in and how to even prepare for those 2 sessions. The first session I'm going to be doing is called How to Find the Intersection Between Your Purpose and Your Practice. Now, this is really targeted for chairs in their first maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years. It's a lot of the basics about going from 1 group to 2 groups to 3 groups and going from part-time doing this towards full-time or as full-time as you would want to do. There's a lot of good blocking and tackling and basic information here that I think every chair needs to know as the foundation of their practice. This will be on Monday, February 2nd at 1:30 in the Torrey Pines rooms 1 and 2, and I really hope to see you there. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a very interactive session. I've got workbooks this year that I've updated. One of the fun facts about the workbooks is we have added QR codes to specific sections of the workbook that link directly into our ChairLife podcast episodes that talk about that specific topic. As an example, when we get into mapping your personal flywheel and building that, I give you a link directly to the podcast episode where I expand on that. And I'm very excited and appreciate the work that Lundy on my team did in building these workbooks to align this. We are really going to be able to give you some deeper information that will sustain beyond our session. So at a high level in this session, we're going to talk about how to grow towards being a full practice chair. Now, what I call a full practice chair is someone that maps out what their capacity is. How many groups, how much time do they want to spend? How many days do they want to work? And then filling that capacity to about 90 or 95% by topping out their groups, booking the number of sessions that they want, having the number of one-to-ones that they want, really utilizing that time at the highest level. For now, 10 years in a row, the number of hours that I work has generally gone down every year. COVID was, of course, the exception, but I'm working a little less and a little less every year, and I'm maintaining a high level of capacity, and I do that very intentionally. And so we're going to talk about how to do that. What are the foundational things that you need to know to do that? How do you set boundaries for that? How do you develop your perfect ideal practice so you can really jump into that? If you want to transition and grow your practice, this would be a great session for you. If you want to avoid mediocrity and build high-performing groups, this session would be for you. And if you really want to be an expert at what you do and align the work that you do to the needs of your members in our community, this session is going to give you those foundational techniques. Here are some of the key takeaways. Here are some of the high-level things that we're going to talk about and work our way through in this workbook. First, we're going to map your from here to there journey. We're going to understand your purpose. Why did you raise your hand to become a Vistage chair? What is it about this community that drew you in, about this work, about the people that you work with? And once we really define that practice, then we're going to begin to establish goals around how to serve that community. That is our from here to there journey. And that little exercise may surprise you with some of the answers that you put on paper. Secondly, we're going to talk about your flywheel, going back to Jim Collins and the great presentation he did for us years ago. My flywheel is what turns my world. And so we look at it often. I keep it in my bullet journal. I talk to my team about it. We're always looking for friction in the flywheel so our world can move at the fastest pace possible in order to do what we're here to do, which is to help high-performing leaders achieve more than they imagined possible. Then we're going to talk about boundaries, a really important word. Boundaries includes saying no. It includes protecting your time and your energy. It includes blocking time off for the things that are more important to you than the great work that we're doing. And as much as I love this work, to be honest, I love my family, my kids and grandkids, and I love to take time off and spend time with them and travel and do things. I know you do too. And so I want us to think about how we can be more intentional about that, and setting boundaries is step one for that. Then we're going to do an analysis of your work year, your work month, your work week, and even your work day. And we'll come up with techniques for you to build structure into that will give you freedom. Structure equals freedom. And so building that in place will allow you to have more time off and be more relaxed about the work that you do. Then we're going to analyze where you are. We're really going to take a deep look, and you can fill out this sheet in the session or afterwards about things like how many hours you're working. What's your income per hour? What is your utilization rate? I'll share with you mine. I try to be very open and authentic in these sessions. And I'm not perfect at this by any stretch of the imagination, but I am intentional about it. And so anything I can do to help you be that as well, knowing where we are helps us figure out where we can go and grow from there. We're going to touch on our 12 high-performing behaviors that we have in our community and share those with you and offer for you to introduce those into your members. We're going to talk about other resources, including my website, the newsletter, Chair Success services that we have, branding. We're going to talk about how people view me, and we're going to really spend some time on referrals and really starting that flywheel of referrals in our community. So members know that we have an expectation high-performing members will help other people find and participate in our community. Those are all things that you'll take away from that first session, again, on Monday, February 2nd at 1:30 in Torrey Pines 1 and 2. So I hope to see you there. The workbook will get you started, and I will help you fill it in, and you will be off and running. Session 2 is called Best Practices to Optimize Your Time and Income to Build Your Ideal Practice. This is a little bit more advanced, but it's still a great foundational session for anyone at any stage, but it's really targeted for chairs that are kind of hitting stride, that want to go from 2 to 3 groups to 4 to 5 groups to really maximize that time. They want to go from an average number of members of maybe a 70% utilization rate to a 90 or 95% utilization rate. This session is going to be Tuesday, February 3rd at 8:30 a.m. back in Torrey Pines 1 and 2. So please sign up. I know when I checked yesterday, there were very few seats available, but come on anyway. Just don't tell Vistage I said that. We'll find a way to cram you into the room. It'll be great. This session is going to be about scaling to be a full practice chair. Now, I mentioned a moment ago what a full practice chair is, but I'm going to share with you how I maintain a full practice and why it's so important to me in doing so. And there are several key areas, key takeaways from this that I want you to really lean in and learn from. The first one is about boosting your income per hour, which is a great metric for us to determine how effective we are in the work that we're doing. Now, it doesn't have anything to do with the effectiveness of coaching, but it does have effectiveness of time. And so when I think about utilizing my time, I want to be as effective as possible. If I'm going to work, say, 1,200 hours or 1,300 hours a year, I want to make every hour count. And so this session will help us understand how we do that, how we measure that. We're also going to get into deeper level or discussion around utilization and capacity. We're going to talk about retention, referral culture, and then leveraging your brand to get that flywheel moving for referrals. We'll do a deeper dive on referrals in this session than we did in the first one. We will begin the session by looking back at your flywheel, your practice analysis, and your ideal practice worksheet that you would have completed in the first session. Now, if you don't make the first session, no big deal. We have all of this available on a new website that we've just launched at mychairlife.com. So you'll be able to see all of the workbooks, both the workbooks and our session information posted up on that website for you to grab after the session. But that's the starting point. Where are you now? We're going to pick up from where you are now and really focus on where you want to go. We'll talk about tips and techniques to increase your income per hour, to improve your utilization rate, to maximize your productivity, looking at the way Vistage pays us and how you can build groups in an order that makes a little sense and builds on each other and leverages the members you have for referrals. As I said, we're going to lean in heavily on brand attributes. I recently did a session with the San Antonio Business Journal publisher, Jimmy Holmes, who's been a part of our community now for almost 10 years, and talked about how we're leveraging our brand attributes in that world. And I'll be referring back to that and other ways for you to get the flywheel spinning on referrals. So you no longer have to do cold calling or trying to ask members to refer their friends and all that kind of stuff. Like, those days are behind us. And I think if you really figure out how to crack the code on referrals, you'll find that keeping your utilization rate high is not as hard as it sounds. We're also going to talk about your ideal member, because every one of us is different. And when we think about who our ideal member is, it's going to vary by chair. And so really being intentional for yourself about who you want in your group, who do you work best with, who responds best to you, and who's going to meet your high-performing behaviors is a critical part. I'm going to touch on productivity tools, some of my favorites like Spark and Voxer and Evernote, followupthen.com. And I'll even mention a new one that I've just discovered a few months ago that I think has been a game changer. I would say this tool alone is saving me 5 hours a week, more than almost any other productivity tool that I have. So I'm looking forward to sharing that information with you. We'll talk about this referral workflow that we've developed between my team members, how we handle people when they come into our community, how we push them through the funnel, how we use my time wisely with them. And then you'll kind of wrap up by aligning the strategic planning tool from Vistage with your ChairLife strategic plan. I was able to use SPV this year to build out my own strategic plan, and it aligns exactly with the things that I'm teaching in ChairWorld. So I am doing what I'm teaching, and I want to encourage you to leverage that great tool to use it for your practice as well. So all that to say, whether you can make just one session or both sessions, I would love to see you there. I'm also in the directory. I've already put all my information in there. If you just want to say hi, let me know. Just ping me. I would love to meet you. I appreciate the support that we've had at 1 year and over 40 episodes now with our ChairLife podcast. I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I appreciate the kind words that you shared with me and those of you that are listening. We have over 200 folks subscribing now to our podcast. And I just think that's fantastic. So it's really anything that we can do to help you and our community, I want to do. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in San Diego.
Hey, it's Allie again. Have you ever thought there's got to be a smarter way to run my chair practice without losing focus on the people and the growth? Tom built Chair Success Services for exactly that. It gives Vistage chairs the structure and support to focus on high payoff activities and high performing groups. The result? You focus on growth, you deepen relationships, and you build your chair life, just like Tom has done. You don't have to do it alone. Helping you work smarter, lead stronger, and make space for what matters most is what we do. Let's talk. Visit chairsuccessservices.com to take the first step. I look forward to talking with you.
Now it's time for Tom's tips and tricks to optimize your productivity and your chair life.
Welcome to the tips and tricks section. And today we're going to talk about brown M&Ms. Maybe not what you expected to hear me talk about on this podcast, but bear with me for a minute. I'm going to take about 5 or 6 minutes and share a story with you that I think is very relevant to our business community and our Vistage community. And you may not think of David Lee Roth and Van Halen as somebody that would influence our world, but let me tell you a story that's just amazing to me that I think is so cool and something I really learned from and apply into our world. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm a huge Van Halen fan. I grew up with Van Halen. I liked David Lee Roth when he was there, and I've just been a fan of classic rock for years and years, and so I still listen to their music. I think it's really cool. But what you may not know is about their brown M&Ms. And Van Halen, when they were touring back in the 80s, had massive tours and small arenas, but they would bring 9 trucks in. They'd have pyrotechnic information. They'd have rigging that, if it falls over, would smash somebody. And David Roth, their leader at this time, would have a 53-page rider as part of the agreement that they would have with these arenas, with these groups that were booking them in these cities time after time. 53 pages is pretty deep, but somewhere buried in that document was a sign, or a note rather, that said, no brown M&Ms. They wanted M&Ms in their room, in their dressing room, and that sounds like something that a rock star would ask for. But they didn't want any brown M&Ms. Now, why would they do that? Well, Roth had a really great idea relating to this. He wanted to make sure that they read everything in the 53-page rider. He wanted to make sure that they were paying attention, that the promoters were not just skimming a contract, that they were missing things. He wanted to know that they were paying close attention so that everything, the lighting, the sound, the audience, the equipment, the safety, everything was exactly as he wanted it to be. And so he slipped in no brown M&Ms deep into the document. And if he saw brown M&Ms, it was a tripwire. If he went into his dressing room and there were green and red and blue M&Ms and a couple of brown mixed in, he would throw a temper tantrum, and probably rightly so, because missed candy is not the issue. It's not the M&Ms that he's worried about. It's the safety. It's the other aspects of their show that he wanted excellence and he wanted it to be right. And if they didn't pay attention to the brown M&Ms, they weren't going to pay attention to safety. They weren't going to pay attention to lighting, and they weren't going to pay attention to the small stuff. And so Roth used brown M&Ms as his safety trigger to make sure that the entire group was paying attention to what Van Halen expected for their show. Now, this is a great idea, and this tripwire concept is something that I've applied into our Vistage groups. What are the brown M&Ms? What are the indicators in our groups that we're missing something, that they're seeing things that we're not, that they're overlooking things that are important for our community to succeed? Well, here are some examples for you that I think are brown M&Ms or potential brown M&Ms in our community. The first one is team disengagement. When members are not checking in before meetings, when they're not meeting with their accountability teams, when they're signaling that they're burned out or they're late to meetings or leaving early, these are brown M&Ms. We might as well jump on these fixes, as Van Halen would say, and really try to stop them because they are indicators that there's a deeper problem. Sloppy emails is another one when members are not communicating clearly with others. And this is not just for member communication, but I remind my team of this all the time. We're talking to our members about being high performing. And if we have mistakes in our communication with them, if our placemats are wrong, if our emails are wrong, if our meeting invitations are incorrect, or things go out late, That's a brown M&M for my team. And they know that, and they know that term. And I want to make sure that we are staying on top of those things so we don't lower our own level of performance expectation. Another one is an unclean workspace. Like you, I have times to walk through member facilities. And when I do that and I see that they're unkempt, they don't care about the landscaping, they don't care about the way their customers see them, they don't even care about their own office, the way that they're being perceived. I view that as a brown M&M in their life, and I'll often bring it up to them. I think we need to pay attention to those things. We've really got to pay attention to the brown M&Ms in our life, in our Vistage community, in our members' lives, and in the own work that we do. Here's a couple more that connect directly into our group. One would be NPS scores and member feedback. I read member feedback every month. I get a recap from my team that shows every member comment, who was in the meeting, who was not in the meeting. We track attendance on our placemats, and I read every single comment, and I let them know that I read every single comment. I read every check-in that they do as well. And when they don't do that, when I don't do that, they know it. That's a signal to them that I'm not paying deep attention because I've created this expectation. Another brown M&M for our members and our community is no white space. They're late or missing one-to-ones because they're overloaded, and that's a tripwire for burnout. So we have to make sure we're keeping an eye and listening to those things. A brown M&M could be a member not giving us referrals. A brown M&M could then be too quiet in a meeting. A brown M&M could be them being too vocal in a meeting and really being disengaged during the meeting, checking their phone or peeking out, trying to sneak out early, things like that. All of these are tripwires, as David Lee Roth said, that will help us see things in our community and take action on those things. There's a quote from David Lee Roth that I read in Rolling Stone magazine from years ago, and it said, "The brown M&Ms weren't ego, they were safety. When you spot the small flaw, you save the show." Now, they were accusing him of having a giant ego about being a diva and wanting no brown M&Ms in his M&Ms. But that's not it at all. And it's the same for us. Roth expected excellence from his promoters and the people around him. We should expect excellence from our members as high performers. But most importantly, we need to catch the brown M&Ms in our world, in the things that we're doing and how members see us, and take that as a tripwire and change our behavior so that we can fix those things before they create a disruption. So, what are the brown M&Ms in your life? I know I've got them, and I'm going to be paying attention to them, and I hope you will too.
Thanks for listening to the ChairLife podcast. Remember, you can find more resources at tomcuthbert.com. Please let others know about our podcast by sending them to chairlifepodcast.com. See you next time on the ChairLife podcast.